Hey guys, welcome to Bookish Islander. I hope you're all well. It's 2020. Would you believe it? We're in January 2020. That begins a new decade. It also means that I've been on BookTube for about a year now. I started in January 2019 and I can't believe I'm still around. I've loved every second of it. I feel like I've learned so much. I've had such a ball joining the BookTube community, the famous BookTube community, feeling really a part of it and feeling very welcome. And let me just tell you that by BookTube community, I don't just mean the people who make videos. I also mean the people who comment regularly on those videos, and even people who don't comment but watch regularly. So thank you to everyone who has made me feel so welcome in this community. It's been an amazing year, but 2020, it's going to be even better. So I'm here to do my first book haul of the year. So I have a mixed bag of books. Okay, that sounds wrong. It's not a mixed bag of books. They're all excellent books. Or that's what I hope anyway. I haven't read any of them yet, but I intend to in 2020, sooner rather than later. The books that I'm going to talk about today, well, some of them are presents given to me by very dear people. Others, I guess they're all presents because the rest were all presents to myself, from me to me. So yeah, they're all presents. And I'll talk a little bit about the books and also a little bit of why I want to read them. So the first book I have for you is The Flights by Olga Tokarczuk. This book is very famous. I have the Spanish translation that only recently came out. This novel won the Man Booker International, so it's very well known. It's widely available in English. Olga Tokarczuk, of course, won the Nobel Prize for Literature this year. That put her in the map. Actually, I was aware of her before because a lot of people have been reading Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. And in fact, late last year, in December 2019, I picked up that book and I read it. I liked it. I thought it was a very strange book. It disturbed me. It perturbed me a lot. And I wasn't too sure what to make out of it. In fact, I haven't spoken about that book on my channel yet. And I might do in the future. I might talk about it once I've read Flight, so I can talk about both of them. Having said that, I expect The Flights to be quite different. I think this is going to be, from what I've seen, it's a lot bigger, but it also feels to be very different in structure. I'm very intrigued by the structure of this book. This seems to be some kind of self-portrait of the writer herself at the beginning, but there's a lot of history here, Central European history. Of course, Olga Tokarczuk is from Poland. And I've been reading quite a few books from that part of the world, from that part of Europe, mostly German books, but not only, in December 2019. So I want to go deeper into that, particularly German literature. And I know there's a great readathon going around that is co-hosted by Mel from Mel's Bookland Adventures and the incomparable Britta Bowler. So I'm going to try to join that. This is not the book to do it because this book was written in Polish and you need to read books that were originally written in German to join that readathon. So that's something else. But you know, it's still Central Europe, so it won't count for them, but it will count for me. The next book I have, however, will count for that German readathon or for anybody interested in German literature. This is Visitation by Jenny Erpenbeck. And this was a present by my dear friend Amelia. Now, Amelia doesn't have her own channel, but she's a regular commenter here on BookTube, not just on my channel, but on a lot of channels, on all the best channels. And, you know, recently we did a couple of buddy reads, very successful buddy reads. She's a great buddy reader. We had a lot of fun. And she very kindly sent me this book. She put it in the mail from Germany. I don't know anything about this author or this book. The name of the author kind of rings a bell. This book is very short. It sounds fascinating. It says, I'm going to read you a little bit from the back. It says, by the side of a lake in Brandenburg, a young architect builds a house of his dreams, but the land has a dark history that began with the drowning of a young woman and grew darker still over the course of a century. Jewish neighbors disappear one by one. The Red Army requisitions the house. A couple who had fled the brutal regime in Germany returned from exile in Moscow, and after the fall of the wall, their granddaughter is forced to relinquish her claim on the house. Reaching into a recent past thronged with quiet horror, Johnny Erpenbeck tells a story both beautiful and brutal about the things that haunt a home. So this sounds fascinating. I can't wait to read this. I'm hoping to get to this sooner than later so I can talk to you all about it. And the next book is also a present, but it's not from anybody you would know. This is Mosquestrom, which is a Spanish novel from the 1930s by it's actually a Spanish language novel, and it was written and first published, I believe, in Spain. But the writer, Rosa Arciniega, was actually from Peru. So she's a South American author. I believe I've already started reading this book. Yeah, I'm on page 121. And it seems to be a dystopia along the lines of Brave New World. I haven't read Brave New World in many years. I have read it, but I haven't read it in many, many years. So I might want to revisit that after I'm done with this. I'm enjoying it so far. It's a rare book. I don't think you'll be able to find it in English. But if you read Spanish, and I know quite a few of you do, then I recommend it if you just want to read something completely different by an author that's obscure. At least she was obscure to me. If you have heard about Rosa Arciniaga before and have read some of her other books, please let me know, because, until I unwrapped this book, I had no idea who she was. Let's go back to the German language books for a moment. I have 3 books here by the late Austrian author Thomas Bernhard. So I have The Loser. I have them all in Spanish, but they're all widely available in English. So I have The Loser. I have this one. It's called, what's the word in English? Concrete. The titles are just literal translations, really. And finally, I have Extinction, which sounds kind of ominous, but it's January. I'm feeling at my most optimistic, so this is the right time to read something ominous like this. I think the 3 books would probably be quite downers, but quite honestly, I can't wait to read them. I'm in the mood for that kind of thing. Thomas Bernhard, of course, a hugely famous and acclaimed writer. He's been on my radar for many a year, and I've been meaning to read his works. So why now? Well, Alfaguara, the Spanish publishing house, decided to re-release these 3 novels recently. So I decided to get all 3 of them, and I have no excuse now. So I think I'm gonna begin with The Loser, which deals with suicide. So again, be warned, it's not going to be a barrel of laughs, but there you go. I'll let you know how I feel about them when I read them, so, watch out. And finally, I have 2 books that deal with the Basque Country and the recent political troubles and terrorism and violence and all of that. And they're all 2 books are fiction. One of them is a novel, and the other one, it's a collection of short stories. And the reason I want to read them, before I will let you know what they are, but the reason I wanted to read them is because last year I read Patria, Homeland, by Fernando Aramburu. Now, this book, it's a chunker of a novel, and it deals with 2 families on either side of the conflict, but it's incredibly simplistic. It does a lot of, it just confirms mainstream bias of the conflict, and it's not because of that, it is not an interesting novel. It's a novel that can be pleasurable to read. It's an easy read. I actually enjoyed it, but I think it's quite a bad book. However, it's a huge bestseller. It has been on the bestseller lists most bestseller lists in Spain for the last, I think, 3 years. Somebody gave it to me as a present a couple of years ago when it was at the peak of its popularity. But, I wasn't interested, so I put it off. And then earlier this year, I decided to read it because why not? I owned it and I wanted to know what the fuss was all about. And in fact, I even spoke about it a little bit on my channel. And yeah, it's not a book for me, but I'm interested in the topic and in some of the themes that he doesn't quite explore much in depth here. So I was looking out for suggestions, recommendations, anything that covered the same ground, but from more interesting perspectives. So I heard about 2 female writers, one Edurne Portela, and this is her novel Mejor la ausencia. Unfortunately, this is not available in English yet, I don't think. She is a former academic as well, and she has written a lot on violence. She is from the Basque Country, and this novel is about a teenager and who then becomes a young woman and has to deal with violence. She comes from a working class part of the Basque Country where violence was ripe in the 1980s and 90s. And yeah, I can't wait to read this. But actually, the first book about this conflict that I heard about in relation to Patria, but actually in more favorable terms, was Un Corazón Demasiado Grande, which is a novel. It's actually a collection of short stories. And this is the first time these stories, the stories contained in this volume, come out in Spanish, because the author, Eider Rodriguez, actually writes in the Basque country. Not in the Basque country, I mean, she is from the Basque country, but she writes in the Basque language. So she herself has translated all the short stories that make up this volume, which were all published in different books previously in the original Basque, into Spanish herself. So I can't wait to read this. I'll probably read these two books either in close succession or at the same time. I think it'd be quite easy to combine them because this is short stories and this one is a novel. So I can't wait to read those two books. Again, I'm sorry they're not available in English, or at least I don't think they are, and I don't think if they ever will. But if you read in Spanish, I can't recommend them yet because I haven't read them, but they sound fascinating, and I shall be talking about them soon on my channel. So, wow, okay, that's my book haul. Those are the books that I have. It doesn't mean that these are the only books that I'm going to be reading soon. I have other things that I'm in the middle of. There are other books that I want to begin, but I have them in ebook format, and I don't think it's that nice to do a book haul with ebook format books. But let me know if you'll be interested in that. I'm game, I can try it and do that in the future. Anyway, I hope you've had I hope you've had fun. Yeah, that makes sense. I hope you've had fun, and I hope you're having a fun beginning of 2020. Let me know what books you're reading right now. Let me know if you've read or are interested in reading any of the books I've discussed and I've shown you in this book haul. I hope you're well. I hope to see you again very soon. Bye-bye.